Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of My Sunderland 11, as always in association with the Sunderland Food Bank and the Sunderland Fans Museum. Do go check them out in the link in the description below and help out. They do incredible work, so make sure you go and do your best to help out. With me, I've got a very special guest with a fantastic 11 that they've thought up of. Mike Smith, how are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing very well, Matthew. Are you?
Yeah, I'm doing very good, thank you. Been looking forward to going through this team with you. How's your sort of lockdown been going? Third one now.
Well, I guess it's like everybody else's, isn't it? You got to try and make it the best you can. Bit strange experience. It was my birthday yesterday, so that was my first lockdown birthday. Yeah. So nevertheless, though, it was a pretty good one. Ended up with a nice takeaway from the Black Horse in Bolton. I could recommend them. Absolutely terrific. But like a lot of people, missing the social engagement and especially the matches, whether they be home or away.
Yeah, exactly. Happy birthday for yesterday, by the way. I didn't say it yet. It must have been your 42nd birthday.
Yeah, getting on that way. Well, you know, if that's a date, that's a strange one because my dad thinks he's 42. He's got dementia at the moment, and I can't get him moved off the fact that he's 42 and I'm 63. But it happens. As long as you can still recognise me and have a good conversation about various things, then that's great.
Of course. Good to hear. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, really. Sort of what you sort of did as like a job, and sort of how you grew up.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time. Well, let's go back to the start, because I think one of the things that's quite important is how I became a Sunderland supporter in the first place. And I know that might be very easy for a lot of people because they're just born into it, but I was born into the opposite. So as a kid, I was born into a Newcastle family who effectively based in Concert, Porterfield, and I know there's quite a few Sunderland fans there. But especially in Porterfield, where I spent the first 2 years of my life, a very, very strong contingent of Newcastle fans. And it was everybody in my family. So I was the first generation Sunderland fan. And the reason that happened was because I moved down, well, Mum and Dad moved down to Wardley and Gateshead from Porterfield, and 2 or 3 of my best friends as I was growing up were Sunderland fans. And so I went that way. And I don't know, you not know Wardley, but it's on the east side of Gateshead and very close to the border of South Tyneside. So you can come out the street where my mum and dad live. You could turn right and go to Newcastle, or you could turn left and go to Sunderland. So I managed to turn left and end up in Sunderland for football supporting reasons. And I managed to persuade a few people to take me to the games. My dad was a big Newcastle fan and still is. And one of the things I'll be eternally grateful for was the fact that he allowed me that independence of choice, if you see what I mean. And I didn't have to go to Newcastle games with him. Although we did go to some, I have to say. And some of the times I went up there were times when we were in the lower league, in what was effectively Division 2, below the Premiership as is now, so the Championship as it were. And Newcastle would be playing Chelsea or Everton and stuff like that. My dad used to take me up there. Could never switch me away from the red and white side though, and that was really interesting.
Yeah, so you started supporting Sunderland because of your friends, really. Your family didn't ever try and convert you back to Newcastle?
No, well, I mean, bear in mind that we chipped it down to Wardley, and Porterfield and all that was quite a few miles away. I didn't see them that often for them to be able to get at me. So by the time I'd been to Sunderland and seen the splash of colour and everything else, I mean, you got to bear in mind that when I was a kid growing up in the 60s, there was virtually no football on the TV. The biggest occasions were international football from time to time, but every single year, the FA Cup final. And probably, you know, for your era, Matthew, you know, you'd think, well, what's the, you know, what is it behind this aura that the FA Cup actually has? Well, it was the one big occasion in the season where you'd see a live football game. And then the other thing, of course, was that all of the games were on black and white TVs. So you can only imagine going to Roker Park for the very first time, seeing that splash of red and white and everything else about it. And, you know, I knew football pitches were green, obviously, but to see the white markings, the red and white everywhere, just fantastic. And that's really what stuck for me. And there was no going back after that.
Yeah, excellent. What would you say you're, out of all the time supporting Sunderland? I mean, obviously, I can imagine the answer probably would be the cup final, but I'll ask the question anyway. What would be your best memory of supporting Sunderland, or memories?
Well, I think there's a lot around that. I mean, I've grown up basically as a Sunderland fan. All of my family and my two brothers who came after me, my sister who came after me, all Sunderland fans. All of their kids Sunderland fans, and you know, so to me, one of the great memories is us being able to go to Sunderland games together. You know, even the last two trips to Wembley, absolutely fantastic. But in terms of the football we played, you know, you've got to go with, you know, the 70s. 70s was quite a successful period for us in many ways. Obviously, the cup final and winning the cup. But there were other great occasions in the 70s. And one of the great memories of the 70s was actually the time we were relegated. Because by the time we were relegated in 76, 77, we were actually playing championship-winning football. The only thing was that it just happened for 1/3 of the season. And we nearly brought off probably the greatest escape ever in that period, where we just sort of flicked the switch in February from a team that couldn't score, was getting beat every game, to one that couldn't stop scoring and was so difficult to beat, but not from a defensive perspective. We were just playing fantastic football. So that was one of the great ones. And then, of course, you know, the 80s was pretty bleak. If you're a Sunderland fan, there wasn't a lot going on. There wasn't a great amount happening. And of course, we ended up in the 3rd division for the first time in our history. And then if you push on into the 90s, we managed to recover. And one of the best seasons that I can remember, of course, was that one season we had in the 3rd division. And we went to most places and won. And that was just fantastic. And then, you know, we managed to get promoted again into the Premiership, fluked it through the playoff against Swindon, where we lost. But the semi-final in that period was the Sunderland-Newcastle semi-final. And when we beat Newcastle up there, it was just unbelievable. And the whole atmosphere was just fantastic. And I was lucky enough to be there. But I wasn't in the Sunderland end, and I was in my dad's seat where he had a season ticket in the Newcastle end. And I had to sit on my hands that day, big style. Unbelievable, really fantastic event that was. Rest of the 90s, well, it wasn't very good at all until Peter Reid pitched up. And then all of a sudden things took off. And of course, one of the best periods of our time being a Sunderland fan, between 1997 through to 2001, just incredible. And you know, seeing the style and the quality of football that we had there, and the characters and the players that we had, fantastic. So there's been like sort of a dearth of entertainment and things, but bookended between some fantastic periods and fantastic games. And you know, I mean, I know latterly things are desperate, really. But there are signs now, aren't there, through ownership and other things, that would be sharp put behind us. So looking forward to another one of those little spurts of 4 or 5 years where we can start to really get excited again and enjoy the football.
Yeah, well, let's hope we can. Yeah, I spoke to Gordon Armstrong in the playoff semi-final you mentioned there in 1990. I spoke to Gordon Armstrong, who I think, I don't know, did he play in that game? I'm sure he played in that game, didn't he?
I think
No. Yeah, and he said it was brilliant because he grew up in Newcastle and he went to a school in Newcastle and he was the only Sunderland fan. And he said to have that experience of winning and then just rubbing it all back in their faces. You know, he just said it was a fantastic memory. And yeah, the Gates and Gabbiadini, a fantastic game. That was. And well, so you list off sort of all, most of the decades they're going through football, and obviously we are where we are now and we find ourselves in this position, but also not only do we find ourselves in League One, but we also find ourselves probably in the weirdest time like ever in the generation of football where no fans are allowed in the stadiums. So my next question really is, how have you found watching football this season? Because it's been very strange.
Yeah, it has been strange, and so just waiting for a Saturday afternoon, or more regularly even now, Tuesday night, just to tune in, sitting literally watching it like this on a computer screen, in an atmosphere where, there is no atmosphere, is there? So it's just, it is one of the weirdest things. I think it's evident, isn't it, that you can prove a few things though if you look back in terms of experience. One of the things that I think that is a problem for us is how players manage to handle the atmosphere at Stadium of Light and the big stage and how that works. A lot of people have said there's a problem because the fans get on the back very quickly. Well, there's not been many fans to get on the back in the last season, has there? And that's just proven again to be a very difficult thing for the team to handle. So I think it tells us a lot about the fact that you need big players at Sunderland, big players to handle the big stage. And I think the longer we continue to recruit at League One level, and obviously the levels that got us into League One to start with, then the more likely it is that we're going to stick there. But we're hopeful now that things will move on. But it's been devoid of atmosphere and devoid of sort of an excitement level, I guess, in some respects. And you can virtually see the patterns now beginning to emerge. The last 3 games, taking the lead, get clawed back, get beaten, certain of those games. And, to that end, we're just paddling about, aren't we?
Yes. Would you say that having no fans in the stadium would... See, I think it does both. It affects them negatively, but I also think for maybe a few players, like let's say Charlie Wyke, for example, I think maybe having no fans in the stadium is maybe a positive effect. So do you think it's more of a negative or positive effect on the players not having fans in?
Oh, I think it's a massive negative effect, not for players not to have fans in. I think the best of them feed from the crowd, don't they? They really just thrive on seeing, and feeling that sort of support for them. And there will be ones who feel like that support turns, doesn't it? And it starts to get on players' backs, and their confidence goes down quickly. But I think the majority who really fancy themselves as good footballers will thrive where there's a crowd. No question.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one last question before we go through your starting 11. Now, I ask all the guests this that come on, and if it isn't a difficult enough question, in your own words, what does Sunderland AFC mean to you?
Well, I guess going back into the 60s, there isn't a day gone by, I don't think, when I haven't had some sort of thought of looking for some action or activity coming out of that football club. So it's been a really, really intense focus. I think it's allowed some character building, because you asked me earlier what I did as I was working. Well, I worked up at Northern Rock, and was in amongst many, many, many Newcastle fans. So a lot of my missionary work up there, I feel, was like hard place to put, Sunderland in the limelight, where it was just Newcastle all the way. I mean, there were a smattering of us, and we were all pretty hardened Sunderland fans, but So it means a lot to me in that sense of being in a minority. But the biggest thing, I think, above all, is Sunderland as a community and a series of communities. You get that community, obviously, at the match, throngs of people going there, but then it breaks out into loads and loads of different groups. And my experience is that those groups just perpetuate the sort of feeling of actual passion for the football club. And I've been involved in many and still am involved in a few. And I go back to probably so the mid-90s. So I live in Bolton, and the Bolton branch was established by Fred Taylor back in 1994-95 season. And Fred and a few of his mates, and sadly, Fred is no longer with us, but, grew to be such a great friend of mine. And it's that sort of passion and engagement for the football club that brings people together. And you see that throughout the country, don't you? You live down south. You've been brought up in sort of the way your dad's brought you up around Sunderland and passing that legacy on, which is terrific. But right throughout the country, you've got groups of supporters clubs, and that's now extending abroad. And so I've got 3 daughters, and they're all fanatical Sunderland supporters, and I've got a bit of a problem with that now. Not with them being Sunderland supporters, but each one of them have married a mag. So you can see what's coming next, can't you? So it's one of those things where do we take that little legacy, for instance? But my eldest daughter, Rebecca, she is the chair of the North American Supporters Association. She's operating out of Toronto, but covers the whole of North America. And so these things just perpetuate themselves, and they get like-minded people together, and it works well. So for me, Sunderland is a community, and it's a community of communities in a well-meaning way, I think. But it's not like a soft sort of thing. It's like passion, fanatical. And when all of that comes together, it's just sensational when it gets there onto the terraces, and especially when we're going well.
Yeah, I agree there. It's just that community thing. And I think, as you say, like wherever you're from, wherever you live, like anywhere in the world, like for me, like I live in Essex, and I still feel part of Sunderland. It is that community thing, you speak about, I spoke to someone, they said, Sunderland, yes, okay, it is a geographical place, but it's not at heart. People are located anywhere and everywhere. And I think I was having a chat with one of my friends, and he just said, well, if you wanted to support another team, you could. And I was just like, no, I would never support another team, and I never could support another team, because for me, when I support Sunderland, it's not just me supporting 11 players wearing a red and white shirt on the pitch. That's not what it just is. It's about that community and actually being part of something, and that's what it's all about.
Oh, it's amazing. And we've got all sorts of stuff done, so I needed some work done on a house, for instance, and one of the builders that came to see me was from Sunderland, and there he was. He turned up in his Sunderland tracksuit top. He came to the house I was living in at the time. I had my Sunderland slippers on, and it was virtually a deal done on site in that sense, in terms of getting the right person for the job to build a house and that. And since then, we've been absolutely great friends, and it's just so it just gets you, doesn't it? And it's one of them things that just goes on and on, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, I've got a story. My friend probably watched this. Dan, I met Dan in Marbella on holiday, and he's from Berkshire, and that's where he lives now. And he was wearing a Sunderland training top in Marbella. We met nearly 4 years ago now, and we said hello to him. I'm a Sunderland fan, he's a Sunderland fan, and we still remain friends now. and that's just how it is. Really, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's it. We're just part of something. We're not even from Sunderland, but we both love the exact same thing. That's nearly 300 miles away. It would be nice. It would be nice and easier just to live there, really. But I mean, for now, I'm here doing the best I can, and still feeling part of it, really.
Well,
But that's what it's all about. That's what it's
Brilliant.
all about. So yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. Great, lovely to talk about. So I think now we'll go through your all-time favourite Sunderland 11.
Yeah.
So in goal, who have you got there?
Well, Sunderland have a history and reputation of having great goalkeepers, believe it or not. And anybody looking at us over the last 5 years only would think, you're mad. But great goalkeepers, and the ones that stick out in recent times are the likes of Mignolet, Tommy Sorensen, both saved penalties up at Newcastle. And you look at how players, how goalkeepers have developed at Sunderland, and we even had Shea Given on loan for us in the 95-96 promotion winning side for half a season. He was fantastic in that sense. And we had the likes of Chris Turner, Barry Siddle, all great goalkeepers. But the one that I've gone for is Jimmy Montgomery. And I mean, that's not just because of his saves in the cup final. It's because he was the first goalkeeper that I saw when I started supporting Sunderland. And he stayed for ages and ages. I didn't leave the club, I don't think, until about 1976-ish, or 1977, something like that. And I'd been watching him since 1965. So to me, and the way in which he went about his job and as a goalkeeper, and he was really unlucky, not to go to the 1970 World Cup finals. He was in the 40 selected, but then it was cut down to the 22 that went. And Peter Benetti of Chelsea was selected ahead of him. And then, I don't know if you know, but in the quarter-final of the 1970 World Cup, we lost to West Germany. And Benetti was horrendous that day, and he'd only just been drafted in because Gordon Banks, who was our keeper at the time, had some dodgy food poisoning. So I think Montgomery would have done a better job than Benetti. But then again, I think Benetti was also one of those reflex goalkeepers that when he came off looked brilliant as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, Jimmy Montgomery is Sunderland's record appearance holder as well. So that's the main thing. And as you say, there's someone who's from Sunderland and also still so involved in the club now. With his
very much so.
So that's fantastic. Good, great choice there. You've gone with a 4-3-3 formation, I believe, haven't you? So we're four defenders. So we'll go to your fullbacks first. So we'll start with who you have at right back.
So I don't think we've been blessed with great fullbacks, to be fair. And I think that, we've had some good ones, but we've had a couple of good ones on loan, haven't we? Like Danny Rose being a standout in that sense. And, the likes of Mickey Gray, I thought was a great fullback. But I think that going back the way, we've had two fullbacks who I think would take some beating. And I needed one of them as well to probably make the 4-3-3 work. So my right back is Dick Malone. And not from his defensive qualities. His defensive qualities were seen at the time as a bit suspect, which makes his performance against Eddie Gray in the FA Cup final all the more remarkable because he was absolutely outstanding. But where he was brilliant was flying down the right-hand side, and then he could have a shot from many yards out and test goalkeepers, and that's something else that we don't do enough of now, isn't it? But he was really flying right back, and when we get up front, you probably see why I would need somebody who's going down the wing like he does to get the balls across to good strikers. And then the other one across the left-hand side, I could have gone for Mickey Gray, but I've gone for Joe Bolton. And Joe Bolton is somebody that I would like people in the current day to have seen. He was a really, really sturdy, stocky, tallish bloke, but strong, really strong. He had a tackle on him like nothing else. He was like a bulldozer when he went into a tackle. He wasn't a creative type, like, say, for instance, Mickey Gray was, but he could not get up and down the left, and then he had a rocket shot on him. Don't think he scored too many goals, but when he did, they were up. They would fly in. But defensively, he was very, very solid indeed. Really, really good player.
I think yeah, brilliant. That's a great choice. Yeah, I've got written down here 273 appearances over 1972 to 1981. So that's what's that, like 9 years? So that's a player who gave a lot of his career, to the club.
Definitely.
So that's fair enough. So those are your fullbacks done. So you want to tell us your central defenders? Yeah.
Now this is where we have had some good players. And some outstanding ones. Again, just aligning to the FA Cup final win, I don't think we can go past Dave Watson. In my period as a Sunderland fan, I probably didn't see enough of Charlie Hurley. And Charlie Hurley was just an outstanding centre-half, a leader, and somebody who scored great goals. Dave Watson was very much in that mould as well. Perhaps not so much on the leadership side, but in terms of quality of football, it was just incredible. And you consider that he was turned back into a centre-half from centre-forward because we bought him from Rotherham for £100,000 as a centre-forward, probably in 1971, I think. By the time the FA Cup final came, he embedded himself as centre-half. And a great player, and he could score a few decent goals. And I think he actually scored the equaliser away at Notts County when we were looking as if we were going to go out again in the third round of the cup in that year. And he got the equaliser in that game, and from there everything else came through. So outstanding player, England international while he was at Sunderland, and then he went to Manchester City. But a great centre half. And then the other one was one who didn't stay around too long at Sunderland, but I did see a bit of in sort of 67, 68-ish. Was Colin Todd, and he was an absolutely class player, and seeing Watson and Todd together would have been an amazing partnership. Todd was quite versatile. He played right back from time to time as well, but his reading of the game was incredible. And Brian Clough came in and signed him for Derby County. Derby went on to win the league in the early 70s and got to the semi-finals, I think, of the what's now the Champions League. Outstanding player, and I think that back two would take some beating by any strike force, I have to say. Excellent.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think Colin Todd and Malone and Watson, of course, as you said before, they all played for England, quite regularly as well.
Malone was Scottish.
Malone. Oh yeah. Sorry, not Malone. As you say, just fantastic. Then it was nice because I don't think Sunderland sort of that. I think it's a lot of things people have spoken about before. Is not being like Sunderland's not fashionable enough to have players who play for Sunderland play for England, and it was nice. It's not obviously. I'm sure it was nice back then to see your own players represent their country.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think there was an under 23 game at Roker Park in '68-ish, and I think it was only ever brought up to Roker Park as Colin Todd was playing in that one. So yeah,
and I think he won the Youth Cup with Sunderland in 1967 as well. Colin Todd. Top player there. So that's your defence done. So that's a solid defence you got there. Obviously, we've gone with a 4-3-3. So do you want to run us through who you have in your three midfields?
Yeah, the three midfielders. Probably the classiest footballer I've seen at Sunderland is Stefan Schwartz. And we brought him in from Valencia, I think, for nigh on 4 million. And he wasn't just good on the field. He actually, I think, loved the area, and he bought very much into what was happening at the time. He got injured a few times. I think he was out for I think he probably only played about 75 or 80 games for us, to be fair. But what a stamp of class and authority on a football pitch. He was incredible, and I thought that he would, he definitely made the difference in firming us up when we were actually going forward. And I remember a game down at Derby when we won 5-0, and goals from Quinn and Phillips and I think Summerby as well. But I just remember him just getting the ball and just being able to just be that presence in midfield and feed Summerby the balls that he would cross to Quinn and Phillips and stuff. It was just great, man. Absolutely great. Then my other choice, which is probably a little bit controversial, I guess, but is Gavin McCann. Every football team needs somebody who's going to do the running for them. And Gavin McCann, to me, was somebody who just emerged from Blackpool, fitted into the team, and then almost, all of a sudden grew to be that sort of player that could take Roy Keane on, head on a pitch, and come out on top. I also saw him score a brilliant goal down at Arsenal when we were losing 2-0 and we ended up coming back 2-2. Cracking goal from outside the box. So he had that in him as well. But the thing that he did was box to box, just box to box, running, tackling, breaking things up and moving it on. We've had great players like Kevin Ball to do that. But just Gavin McCann had that edge for me in terms of an ability going forward. And then the third one that I've gone for is somebody who's a little bit more creative, and that's Ian Porterfield. Now, Porterfield obviously is remembered for the goal at Wembley, but at the same time, he was the first-ish player that I saw who had some skill in the middle of midfield, and he had a fantastic left foot, loads of time on the ball, and when he was in the mood, he was unstoppable, capable of getting a ball forward through to his strikers very quickly. And obviously, as we saw in the cup final as well, he was able to score goals as well. The contenders in and around that for me would have been Kevin Arnott, who played in the 76-77 team, stayed with us till about 81-82, and had a great career at Sunderland, a real cultured footballer. He was a local lad from Gateshead as well. But I just think Porterfield had that little bit extra. I thought Lee Clark was a great player for Sunderland as well, but he wouldn't make it for obvious reasons. So there you go.
Yeah. That's a great choice. Yeah, Porterfield. Of course, like for me, I only know Porterfield for scoring that goal at Wembley against Leeds. In that game. But yeah, Schwartz as well. There's a great player, but I think his career was sort of affected by a lot of injuries as well. Which is a shame. You can say that for about a lot of players, really, couldn't you?
That's right. Yeah, we've seen it now more regularly, aren't we?
Yeah, even I think Jordan Willis now has been ruled out for 6 months. So it's a shame, really. Yeah, it does affect a lot of people's careers as well. And Gavin McCann as well. I've got down. He got one cap for England while he was with Sunderland.
I think in the same game, Mickey Gray got a cap as well. I think down at Villa Park against.
So again, it's nice to see your players play for their country as well. There's your midfield three. We now go on to your front three, who are going to be the most creative players and score the goals. So do you want to talk us through who you've gone with? You can start in any place you want.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that you think about really is goals scored. I mean, defenders can defend well, and they can play well, but it's them that score it that really catch the imagination. And there couldn't be anything better for the imagination as far as Sunderland fans are concerned than the Quinn and Phillips setup. From 1997, wasn't it, through to about 2001. The very fact that Niall Quinn came was based on the fact that Peter Reid had brought him in the season before. And it was just a great combination. And of all of the strikers that we've had, you know, I don't know whether any other combination would have worked as well. So that's why I've gone for them both. Kevin Phillips, obviously the European Golden Boot winner, and the fact that you just emerged from virtually nowhere in Watford to come and then start to score goals like that. It's just unbelievable. And I think that the fact that Quinn was able to just set him up on so many, but Quinn wasn't just setting him up. Quinn was all about holding the ball up, but also getting himself anywhere up to 15 goals a season. And to that end, you know, they're a fantastic combination. But when you've got two players like that, you know, you look at other players who could have put in there. Well, Gary Rowell was a big favourite of mine. He scored 100 goals for Sunderland, starting from mid-70s through to sort of about 1983, 84. And a great player. Instinctive, I didn't never know what Gary Rowell's position was on the field, to be fair, but he drifted between midfield and striker and just used to score goals unbelievably. And he scored 26 or 27 penalties for us. Missed his first one away at Orient and then never missed a game. So he would have been the other one I would have tried to fit in. But the one that I went for eventually was Billy Hughes, because Billy Hughes had some fantastic flair, and him running off the work done by Quinn particularly, but, you know, linking up with Phillips, you know, he would have been unstoppable, I think. And a forward three of those, Quinn, Phillips and Billy Hughes, for me, would have been just fantastic to watch. We've had some good strikers, though, haven't we? I mean, Darren Bent, but look how he left. You know, Asamoah Gyan, and he left the same way as Bent did. Largely put in a season and a bit, and then basically went off to Saudi or somewhere, didn't he? So, you know, you can see why I stuck with those that have really, really sort of taken us to the highest positions that we've been in the league, or actually helped us win the cup. So that was that.
Yeah, lovely. And so those you like two wingers, and then you're a striker as well. Who you got? Was that Niall Quinn?
There's Niall Quinn
there. Absolutely. Yeah, Niall Quinn and Kevin Phillips. You know, like I think nearly everyone that's done you know, an episode on here has pretty much picked Niall Quinn and Kevin Phillips. And yeah, also the honourable mentions as well that you know, you said there, you know, Gary Rowell, who could play anywhere, you know, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, list goes on. You know, we all live in his world. And then you know, Billy Hughes as well, obviously part of the FA Cup winning team. And then, you know, he got a 1 cap for Scotland as well. So yeah, I think it's just, that's what it's all about, really. And yeah, obviously the people who you mentioned as well, like the striker situation, for example, we seem to have strikers who would do really well for a season, and then they seem to not usually have a second season. You see it with a lot of people, you know, like we could even say maybe, you know, you could even say Stephen Fletcher. He had sort of a really good start to his first season, and then didn't really do much for the next season and the season after. You know, Connor Wickham.
Of course. I mean, you know, he was definitely up there as a potential selection, but I just felt that in the sense of like that Quinn and Phillips combination, I wouldn't want to split them up.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I feel like even if they were like on their own, they'd still do a pretty good job. It's like, when we had like Defoe a few years ago. Imagine if we had like a big striker, just like,
Oh yeah,
say if Kevin Phillips Defoe was like a little Kevin Phillips and he had a big striker next to
yeah.
him. Imagine the goals then.
Oh, incredible! That would have been a hell of a setup, and certainly wouldn't have struggled to get out of the bottom three in the last 3 games of the season for 5 years, or however many times we did it. We would have
Yeah.
been right up there in terms of mid-table safety.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just that thing, really. If we kept Sam Allardyce, you never really know what could have happened. I don't think we would be where we are now. But anyway, so yeah, this is your team going along the bottom now. So it's a great team, and of course, if you had to have a manager to take them forward, who would that be?
Yeah. Now, thought about this one, and what I don't like about managers these days is that they come with a fitted system. This is the way I play, so that's the way you've got to play. And to me, it's just sort of trying to shoehorn players into a system to suit the manager and the coach and this and that and the other. So I looked at it from the point of view as who are the managers who have given Sunderland players the opportunity to express themselves on the field. And Peter Reid was right up there. I mean, I loved Peter Reid when he was here. From the point of view of doing exactly that. And then, of course, him and the combination with Bobby Saxton were really entertaining, weren't they? So Peter Reid would have been in there had Stokoe not have done what he did. And I think Stokoe came to Sunderland at a point in time when he recognised there was all sorts of talent in that team, but we weren't getting the best out of the individual players. And he just said to them, training, look, get out there and get playing on that field. And he was quoted in the press as saying, I just want to see footballers playing with a chuckle in their boots and just enjoying it. And I think he managed to switch players who had stagnated and who had been sort of not really given a great opportunity. By that, I mean that they hadn't been encouraged to play their own game, playing the manager's game, and he set them free, and away they went, and look what happened. And it was just such a shame after the cup final that it took about 3 years for us to get promoted after that. We were close on the other 2 occasions, but it took a 3rd season for it to get up. Now, I think I probably took a lot out of Stokoe because once we moved into the First Division, as it was at the time, and we got off to a not too good start, it started to weigh heavily on him, and by sort of middle to end of October, early November, it was just too much for him. And I don't know if there is such a thing as a manager resigning, but I think that's probably, came as close to that as you could get, in the sense I think he had a bit of a decision in him going, even if the club sort of thought it was a good idea as well. But that was the way that worked out. So that was a bit of a shame, because then in came Jimmy Adamson, and from November to February couldn't pick up a point, couldn't get anybody to score a goal. But he put his faith in youth, and that's where the Sean Elliott, Gary Rowell and Kevin Arnott group emerged from, and all of a sudden we took off and away we went, along with some other good young players like Jackie Ashurst, Mick Cody, and players like that. Really good, strong young players who just ran the legs off of their teams. And then we ended up with that ill-fated match away at Everton when Coventry and Bristol City played out the last 10 minutes of the 2-2 draw in the centre circle, courtesy of Jimmy Hill.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah, didn't Stoker have he had 2 spells as manager, didn't he? He came back in the 80s for a little bit, I believe, didn't he? Yeah, Stoker in like the 87.
Yeah, he did. I think to try and salvage the wreckage that Laurie McMenemy had thrust on us, and came back and managed us for the last 7 games, I think, and then into the playoffs and through the playoffs. Nearly pulled it off as well. And again, when you look at Sunderland, how mad is it that we were 2-0 up in the final game of the season, the home to Barnsley, who had nothing to play for, and then lost it 3-2 after having missed the penalty to go 3 up. I mean, it's just the way, isn't it? It's just what happens.
It's the Sunderland way.
Yeah.
Sunderland way. Yeah. Well, what's the nickname that we gave Bob Stoker? It's on the statue. It's the man, the Messiah, something like that.
Messiah, I think, right?
Yeah, the Messiah. Yeah, so yeah, Bob Stoker. I mean, I'm sure some of the fans watching this, you know, they will be in their sort of generation and remember Stoker as being a great manager. You know, he was a player at Newcastle, and I think he got the northeast, and then he liked the northeast. Came back a manager of Sunderland, and you know, a legend really. So yeah, that's a great choice.
Yeah,
that's a wonderful choice. Yeah, so. Yeah, Mike, it's been absolutely brilliant to listen to your stories about the players and the manager as well. It's a fantastic team. How have you found it? Talk about the players. How have you found it? Did you enjoy it?
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I was thinking about this. You know, I think when you asked me, like, wow, what could that be? What could that team look like? And it was great just putting it together. And you know, I found it difficult as well with some players. You know, like Sir Dennis Stewart. There's a great player, and you know he would have been on the bench if you wanted substitutes. But you know, so there was lots of different choices, and then looking at it over various times and how we were doing and that, and it also just sort of allowed me to refresh my memory on some of the great things and some of the bad things as well. And some of the times when we were just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. But there was a period I think from the middle of the 70s through the middle of the 80s when we virtually did something on the last match of the season, either to stay up or win a championship or whatever it might have been. And so, you know, that sort of roller coaster ride was just such a thing. I could have gone for Vic Hallam as well as a striker when we looked like Sir Niall Quinn. And that never to be forgotten game against Man City in the cup run in 1973, when we beat them 3-1 at Roker Park, was just, I think that was voted the match of the century in the voting at the end of the last millennium. You know, incredible. So you know, so many different things, so many great memories. So it's been really good to be able to do it.
Yeah, no problem. I've loved having you on. And I think that is quite a difficult thing. I still haven't even thought of my favourite all-time 11, because I think, you know, with me, I was born in 2003, and and it's not like we've had a fantastic history since then, but we've still had some pretty good players that I remember, and to put them all in a team is quite difficult. So you've done a good job there.
Well, the good thing there is for you, you probably wouldn't have seen them. Well, it probably would have been just coming on stream, I guess, as we got promoted through Roy Keane, and then 10 years worth of Premiership football. And in that time, we've had good players. And you've had to have had good players to beat Newcastle 6 times in a row, don't you?
Yeah, so I'm very grateful I've been able to see that. You know, that's one of the greatest achievements I think Sunderland have ever achieved, really, to beat them 6 times in a row. But yes, it's weird really, because I was used to just watching Premier League football for 10 years, and now we are where we are now, and it's not very nice, but you know, we got to keep on supporting, and you know, one day we've got to get back. One day we've got to.
Yeah. I mean, what goes around comes around. Just that we seem to just plumb the depths for a bit, don't we? Rather than sort of stick around at the top, be boring, and then, you know, do one or two things. We're actually in there, we're out of there, we're in there, we're out of there. And, you know, from time to time, you get an exciting cup final and a few other good games to go along by. It's worth waiting for, I'd say.
Could be in the Papa John's Trophy final this season, so you never know. You never know.
It happens, isn't it? 7 times to Wembley, never seen them win. get to Wembley and can't get in, and then
And we
maybe
might not see them win, but they win anyway.
yeah.
Dear me. Well, yeah, thank you, mate. That's pretty much the end of the show. Before we end, have you got a little message for Sunderland fans watching?
No, I just keep the faith, isn't it? I mean, it's one of those things that we seem now, don't we, to be on the cusp of something different. And if we end up with, a takeover that sets us fair for the next 5 years, then why not? I don't go beyond 5 years because, there will be a period of time when sort of a new owner gets bored with what he's doing or whatever, and then we've got to try and make our own way from there. But I'm hoping that the next 5 years, beyond this season, should create some more fantastic experiences for us all to enjoy, to be fair. That's what I'm putting my hopes on anyway.
Definitely. And definitely we hope we make that new memory of one day getting promoted back to the Premier League, and we should stay there for long eternity, hopefully. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Of course, video is in association with the Sunderland Food Bank and Sunderland Fans Museum, so please go and check them out. Links for how you can support in the description below. But yeah, I thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Away the lads.